In this video, I'm going to show you an easy way to find the right cut settings for a given material. Maybe your order hasn't come in yet, or you ran out of materials and unexpectedly you are finding yourself at the hobby store buying a material you've never used before and you have an order that you need to get on right away. This is a way to find the right cut settings for that material while using the least amount of material possible. So I have just put in some shapes here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them and start fresh from the beginning. Delete those. Layers. Delete those and start over. Okay, so we're just going to insert some shapes, and I would recommend for this that you just go ahead and cut out a piece of material, like, you know, your 5.5 by 5.5 or a 6-inch square. Cut a piece of that material and place it onto your mat, and the reason being, then you have less work to do in design space to make this happen. I'm going to make each of these 2 inches so that when I cut them they would all fit on, like I said, a 5.5 by 5.5 or a 6-inch square. Okay, so I'm simply going to hide with this eye right here. I'm going to hide all but the square, since I have the square in the top left. I'm going to go ahead and hide the octagon, the star, and the heart, and hit make it. And I'm going to keep this in the top left corner and visualize in my mind the 5.5 by 5.5 square that I've placed on my mat. Hit continue, and whichever cut settings you are using, you're going to cut this square out from that cut setting. Once that has completed, do not remove it from your mat, and we'll go on to the second cut setting. In between each cut setting, if you wanted to, you could also send it back through for a second cut. So I could cut this, and if it weren't cut through, I could send it back through for a second cut before moving on to the next shape. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel just so I can go back and show you how to do the next shape. Now I'm going to hide the square, and I'm going to bring up the heart. And I'm going to bring up whatever I had up here. The octagon. So I'm going to bring up the octagon and I'm going to say make it. And make it is going to automatically put it in this corner again, but I'll move it over here closer to my 5.5 by 5.5 edge, and then go to continue. Cut that out again without removing your mat, without pulling it out of the machine. If you wanted to take a sneak peek and see if that cut through, you could send it through for a second cutting if you wanted before trying the next setting. So then you would go to your third shape. I'm going to hide this one, and we haven't done the star yet, so we'll do the star. I would hit make it. It's going to put the star in the top left corner. I'm going to move that down below the 2.5-inch mark, down here closer to my 5.5 inch, since I've got a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square of stencil material on here. Cut. Take a peek without removing the mat at all, without removing the stencil from the mat. Take a peek. If you wanted to, you could send it through for a second cutting. Then you would go back, hide the star, and what do we have left? Not that one. Not that one. We have the heart left. So then you would grab your heart, make it. Now I need to move this to the, imagine my 5.5-inch square by 5.5-inch square corners here. So I'm going to place this away from that edge a little bit. Oh, I don't have my machines connected. Yes, I want to cancel the cut. So then you would cut that out with whichever setting you had chosen. Take a sneak peek if it didn't cut all the way through. Send it back through for a second cut. So that's a way that you can try out 4 different cut settings on one piece of stencil material, and then also if you wanted to try those 4 cuttings on a second cut. because my most common cut setting uses 2 cuts. But if I found myself with a random material I'd never used before, I don't want to waste 6 pieces of stencil material trying to find out what cut's going to work for that material. And I haven't been able to find all materials by Googling them and finding cut settings. So sometimes it's going to be trial and error, unfortunately. But this would be a good way to use one piece of material to try for cut settings in addition to double cut settings if needed. I hope you can find that helpful. If you have any questions at all, feel free to place them in the comments.